Yeah, so I know Don's our facilitator today, but yeah, I've been in communication with Wendy about AMS, and that one's coming up first. So maybe we'll start there and then we can chat a little bit about AGU because that's coming up in a couple weeks as well.
Maybe a few words about NSTA too.
Yeah. So I will just put up the, I did find the guidelines for AMS. Oh yeah, NARS is a great one to talk about, Deb. That comes up in August and they have like the 5-page proposals. So they a little more, but, or do they have session proposals as well, Deb? I didn't even know. Anyways, we can get to that. These were the session topic proposal guidelines for the AMS. And Wendy and I are both part of AMS, and I got an email asking, saying that their session proposals are due on April 1st, so next week. And I reached out to Wendy to say, hey, is this something that you think we should try to do? And she and I both agreed that it'd be really nice to have a session there around climate education, but also kind of broad climate education and thinking about some of the ACE work fitting into that as well. But I know we have fewer folks involved in that organization than some of the other like environmental ed groups or AGU or things like that. So I just wanted to see if there was any interest from any other folks. And Wendy, yeah, do you want to do this with me? Because I mean, we have a week. I think I can put something together. I can start a draft of something based on some of the sessions I've proposed for AGU and other things like that. So I'd be happy to kind of lead the process and all of that. But I just wanted to see if there was any interest from other folks because I don't really want to do it by myself if that ends up being the case.
So let me just bounce off that real quick and look for collaborators. It's super weird for me because I'm an employee of the organization, and I'm more than willing to help, and I can make connections. I am 100% confident, like there was this year, and it was terrific, that there will be a climate education theme. The question is, will we kind of piggyback and participate in what one put forward by others? Can we rework something we've done that we are passionate about, that the words are already right from an AGU session, put that in as an AMS session, and then make it broad enough to invite others doing climate education work? Will the session chairs then latch on to our session? It's a little different than AGU where you don't convene that session. The conference chairs still have to make room in their conference for that space. So what I would advocate for is that Clean began to engage in that AMS community climate education space in a meaningful way by putting in a session proposal and build on that as a community. And one idea I had that's even bigger than just how about we talk to other people who care about education is that a way to reach more people with our story would be to propose a joint session. Because not only is there the 31st Conference on Education, but there is the 35th Conference on Climate Variability and Change, which is a predominantly academic climate science conference. There is also the 13th Conference on Weather, Climate, and the New Energy Economy. And if to go further, there is another conference, the 3rd Symposium on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And all of those conferences will be happening concurrently at the AMS annual meeting. And the clean community and the ACE work that has been done has a pretty compelling story to have the power to convene a cross-conference session and really get some people in the room that may not otherwise be in the room. But it's a lot bigger lift to articulate what that joint session is. But if not us now, and who and when, all that sort of thing.
I agree.
Think that the potential inherent not only in ACE as a concept, but as an unfolding reality now in the Biden administration, and the notion not just viewing it from the perspective of scientists concerned about education, but scientists concerned about influencing public policy and framing what we will do in COP26 and so forth. I think that could be framed in a way that people would almost feel compelled to show up for such a session and help have an input on how we think about those things and talk about them.
I didn't call it out. There's also a policy conference that happened concurrently. So
And infusing both the education and the justice themes into that, the shared way the scientific community starts talking about these things as it relates to policy. It just feels like that this is the magic moment for something like that to happen.
I agree, and it sounds like there's some other interests as well. Jim, did you raise your hand? Do you want to say something?
I do. Yeah, thank you. So it's a question to Katie and especially to Wendy. One of the things that is about AMS that isn't true of AGU and is sometimes true of AAAS is that you have WeatherFest. So naturally, that's something I'm interested in. The hands-on component, the place where people come and do things that are fun.
Mm-hmm.
So my question will be: Is there even talk of somehow doing a remote WeatherFest? Here's what I'm seeing: science festivals, places that do these events, about 2/3 of them are in hibernation and have decided that they don't know how to do remote. 1/3 of them are going strong. We are now able to connect across the country and be at science festivals all across the country. We're now in Europe during the year, and they're looking to keep these after the pandemic is over. So it's a question that WeatherFest could be among those that find a way to do remote labs and remote material. And if you do it now, you get to keep it going. I don't want to overstress our company. I don't want to overdo our organization, but we love to collaborate. So if we have our foot in the door and do something, we can bring in clean, we can bring in AMS somewhere else. It's just something we want to offer because we're finding in other parts of the world, climate is now like the pioneer in how to do this. Others are trying to do what we already know how to do. So just a one of WeatherFest, if WeatherFest is, hopefully WeatherFest isn't out the door. That was a long question. Is WeatherFest out the door?
To my understanding, all systems are go for a hybrid meeting with an in-person component and a hybrid component for the entire meeting next January. It's scheduled for Houston. And I have heard no direct information about what the plans are for WeatherFest, other than last I knew they were working towards an in-person WeatherFest. But we've got a lot longer timeline to engage on that one separately from what the heck we do to propose a session proposal. That one's really short, and we need to come together especially to pull off something grand. I have never seen more than 3 conferences figure out how to do a concurrent session, and 2 can do it pretty easily because there are so many things that constrain the conference ability to convene. So the strongest, most likely way to succeed in year 1 would be to try to pick the top 2 and propose a joint session and see if we can get the committee to bite on 2. If we want to think 3, we could maybe do that too. The easy thing to do is propose 1 and tell our story by compelling single papers in whatever conferences. And I think ACE and CLEAN should absolutely have single papers in these other conference of relevance to raise the visibility. But that isn't what we have to face now. That's an August deadline. Right now is the session proposals.
Deb had a good question in the chat because I know I saw some more panel discussion style sessions at AMS this year, but I didn't know if that was partly virtual or if those are proposed differently. Is it just the style of session where there are sort of oral talks for AMS? Are there other styles of session such as panel discussions or anything like that we should be
I would know
aware of?
the answer to that question. Most of the big panels that convene are organized by the conference organizing committee at the themes of the president. The theme of the entire meeting is environmental security, weather, water, and climate for a more secure world. So that is the theme of the entire meeting. I can directly connect anyone who wants to the president of the AMS. He's a terrific listening guy. I am not on the conference committee. I'm no longer on any of the committees where I'm hearing what's happening with Weatherfest or whatever, but since the president's theme is that you can be sure there are going to be large, significantly well-staffed panels on topics that matter to this community. The question is, would one of them be one we try to organize? Or so there are so many ways in. We can have town halls. We could absolutely organize an ACE or clean town hall. Those are the easiest things to do, and they can be done on fairly short notice. And you write a compelling description of what you'd like people to come talk about. So there are a lot of ways to engage. It's just that this one April one is, what session would we like to be a part of as the routine conference kind of process?
So yeah, more of that, sounds like maybe more of that submitting a session where other people can submit their papers or presentations to. It does look like you can indicate like invited speakers that you may want, and other things like that. But yeah, the town hall would be a good way to go if you wanted to do more of the panel style. So sounds like there's interest. Deb sounds like she's interested, Wendy and I. So maybe we can, Deb, I'll let you go ahead, but I was just going to say maybe we can kind of leave the rest of the time for some of the other conferences and take the conversation offline. So if anybody else is interested, raise your hand and put it in the chat. And then Deb, go ahead.
So I actually think that because of the theme of the climate, or sorry, because of the theme of the conference and the particular year that we're in, we're in a very critical turning point year for a lot of different reasons. So I think we kind of need to be in every space in every way around this sort of justice lens on things, around all of the work that we've been collectively doing for a long time. So because there's a lot of new players coming into this and it's getting kind of neoliberalized again. So like we have to be really persistent in this moment. Yeah. And so I would suggest 3 fronts. I would suggest that we go ahead and submit a session proposal, and I can help Katie in any way, asynchronously. More meetings are going to be a little hard for me this week, but I can do asynchronous stuff.
Yeah, that's
what and then I would also suggest that we go for a town hall, whatever the mechanism is for that. And that I'm happy to try and like, finagle the chair to give us a panel. So I'm happy to work on that one. I might be the better positioned person to do that given the ACE connection. So I'm happy to go for that.
That sounds really good. That was basically going to be my suggestion as well. Is let's just try all of these things and see what we can get.
I agree, all fronts. And I don't know where we stand on Frank Niepold becoming the ACE national focal point, but being AMS, NOAA is obviously omnipresent as a part of our meeting, and the president of the AMS is now a NOAA leader of the modeling center. So it would not be hard for Frank to connect with Mike and have visibility at the highest conference level. So that is something. We'll take care of those other things right now with the short deadlines and watch for all those other opportunities. But my guess is that's something that can totally happen.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I will send an email to Deb, Jen, Wendy, and Frank. We'll include him on this as well, since we're talking about him, so he's aware of it. And then we can get some language for at least, this deadline that's coming up next week, and kind of continue discussing future work with AMS as well.
I think he's on vacation for at least part of this week.
Cool.
For him.
Thanks. Good to know, Jen. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that discussion of AMS, because that was the one that was really coming up here. So I know AGU is coming up too. So, and I just want to caveat the fact that I wanted to also put an announcement out here that next week we are going to be having discussion with the leadership board around kind of clean, a strategic planning process we're kind of trying to go through, and visioning process. I'm not sure exactly what we're calling it, kind of all of these things. And next week we're having a discussion with the Clean Network. And I think some of that we're rethinking kind of what is the role of Clean and what does Clean do. And some of that can potentially affect how we do conference sessioning. So I didn't necessarily like get a whole AGU document together like we usually do, and kind of like with, you know, last couple years we've kind of had these like 5 or so sessions we've been suggesting, and I didn't like pull that together because I was kind of thinking it might be a good year to maybe switch up some of that. I felt like there's just so many other sessions that are great coming into, and then we end up having to kind of like collab sessions with ours and things like that. So I started thinking it might be better to just kind of like let the network. I'll still do the clean like poster session for climate change projects and still plan to do that for AGU, but I know Lynn had another great session idea she was going to bring up here, and if others have that as well, I think that might be a better route to go for AGU, is just sort of letting folks do their own sessioning versus trying to coordinate through clean. But that was my thought. So I'm open to other thoughts as well.
So we're talking AGU right now. I'm just double checking. Okay. Because I am going to have to jump off in 10 minutes for another phone call. So I apologize. But what I was going to say was, just so Dawn has an update, I went to the NSTA webpage and I searched for clean, and they've already got all the schedule built and only 1 and 2 are up. So just so you are aware, at this time on the schedule is only clean 1 and 2. My
you.
session for NCSE got rejected, so I really don't know how they're doing stuff, to be honest.
Good
Yeah,
to know.
well, I know it's a smaller scale,
Yeah.
and I can touch base with Eric Pyle, who's the president-elect, and on some of those proposals and see what he knows. And I don't remember what session 1 was. Well,
1 was elementary,
okay.
and that was going to be led by Katie's coworker with an A. Her name's gone out of my head.
Alicia.
There we go. And so that one's on the boards, and then Clean 2 with the data tools is on the boards. And Katie, I didn't mean to leave your name off of that form, by the way. That
No,
was just an accident.
you should have. No, because that was the point. We were going to kind of focus our efforts on the elementary session.
Okay. I
and
couldn't
be
remember
able to
what
help.
had happened, and then I felt bad.
No,
So-
it was great. Thank you for that.
Strategic and dividing and conquering. So
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I knew I had to leave after I talked about AGU. But I was curious about AGU. I asked my coworker Kate, and she says it's both virtual and in person, and it's in New Orleans, I believe. So for those who might not have known that, I think they're doing kind of a hybrid, and so you can either be in person or there. I don't know yet. It could be like the other things we were talking about. Some concurrent stuff doesn't seem to go very well. I don't know, but what Kate Carter and I, so Kate Carter is in charge of our informal science group and the Breaking Down Barriers community outreach, basically. And so she and I are, and Deb already knows about this a little bit because I talked about it the other day at our climate change collective. We want to have a proposed session where we are looking at climate change assessment. And we wanted to make it similar to how they're doing at AMS, have it open where we could have other people join us. And so I wanted to let everybody know what we're planning on putting out there, and that we would love to have anybody join in, because we're really looking at assessment tools on knowledge in climate, not attitude. And that is a very small pool right now. Deb gave me some great suggestions yesterday I didn't even know about, which I'm really happy to hear about. But we want to add to that because like there's about 20 tools for evolution and not really any validated formal tools yet for climate. And so we wanted to kind of put that out there as a potential project for us at AGU.
And I like this idea because not only are there not as many instruments, but it's, I think personally, harder to do with climate topics because they, span so many different fields and concepts and things like that.
So definitely open to thoughts if you guys have any.
So that was one from AGU that I'd heard about. What are others thinking about AGU? I know that those are coming up in a couple of weeks. So did anyone else like really want Clean to kind of try to organize several sessions, or it seemed like maybe some of the network was thinking of kind of some other things they could focus on, or other ways they could take some of the AGU sessions. I agree. I feel like last year was hard to kind of coordinate 5 sessions for me. I didn't coordinate all of them, but just having that somewhat in my back pocket of trying to think of all of the different sessions that Clean was doing was kind of hard with the virtual, like changes that happened to move to virtual. And I don't know what hybrid will look like this year. So I was a little hesitant to kind of have Clean have like 5 sessions, even with other people leading them. There's still some amount of coordination and things like that. So that's part of my hesitation, just so everyone's
Well,
aware.
one thought, and then I know Frank's got his hand
Yeah,
up,
Frank's got his hand up too.
but I'll intercede. One thought is to include Clean in the name of abstracts and distribute them across other people's sessions. And that way you might hit a broader audience. And to Frank.
So since we're talking about Clean related sessions at AGU, I am just wondering what let's try this again. I'm wondering what COP26 specific follow-ups might be in store. And I'm saying this partly because, largely because of my involvement with the virtual bridges.
Responses to that thought? I think Patrick had a hand up, and then Jim. So maybe we'll just let that thought float. Patrick, go ahead. Am I right that you had a hand up?
This one can float too if needed, but I was thinking if we're going to do another workshop this year, it would be interesting to create a session that supports that workshop. So that structures some grounding for it, that people can go a little deeper on those subjects with. We've been doing workshops for, gosh, 4 years now. So I also think that there's a lot of folks that have been involved in various degrees. I don't know what that would look like exactly, but I think connecting those dots would be nice if we're thinking about a workshop again.
And Jim?
I don't know anything about whether we're doing a workshop this year at AGU. I don't know. Somehow pandemic may have caught us. I don't know. Has anyone been furthering?
No, and those the deadlines for those are usually after the sessions, like early May. So we haven't started talking about it. Usually we end up trying to put something in just so we have the time and space, because the education section has given it to us in the past and usually open to giving it to us again. So I would guess we could have one if we wanted, but there's been no discussion around it yet.
I say this not as an AMS employee, I say this fully as a member of Clean and the Clean board, but as someone who has had to go big and engage in both AMS and AGU, often 3 or 4 weeks apart with the holidays in between. It is brutal. And I just heard a whole lot of people saying, go big, 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 big at AMS, which is something we'd be doing for the first time. And I caution then making sure whatever we would do at AGU is doable, because it is very challenging to do both.
Jim, Callahan?
Yeah. Yes. So am I coming through? Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, great. Sorry. So this would be kind of an invitation, Katie and everybody, because what worked well this last year and will work because they're going to continue to do it hybrid is we're connecting with the other 80% of AGU. I don't know how it breaks down. Education is 5 to 20% of the conference, and then most of the other is science. There are hundreds of climate science sessions that go on, and what we were finding is we go and take part of it and check in with them. And one of the themes that goes on in AGU is they have usable science research, right? They have usable things. Their problem is it's not being used. So when people come to AGU, they're all talking with each other, but it's not going out to the public, and that's where we can come in. Now, what I'm saying is we have the way now remote to go in, talk to a different program and say, you have this research. And taking, for instance, right now in Wisconsin, now that we can be part of the Wisconsin Science Festival, they're coming back to say, well, which education programs, what research do you want to do that's Wisconsin-based? Well, I say, well, first off, here's 8 of them in clean. Like, we'll pick one out. We'll work with NOAA. We'll work with this. I mean, there is no shortage of, we can set up helping their research or a clean program get to the public, because now we can go directly in the schools with labs. I mean, we're getting invited right into the schools to do science labs with expertise and things. I want Clean to be able to take advantage of that. So, I mean, it's another route of not necessarily, we don't have to, in addition to having our own sessions, when we go into other people's sessions, it's not like we're outsiders being, they don't like us. We're going in there offering to get their research out to the public. So they love it.
I'm just going to jump in because we only have 1 minute left and just say, like, thank you all for this discussion. And I think we can continue this on the other conference, on AGU and the other conferences. I'm really glad we got a plan for AMS since that's coming up first. Deadline, we have about 2 weeks before the deadline for the AGU stuff. So we still have a little bit of time to talk about this. And I really think it ties in well with our thoughts that I will send an email out about tomorrow, getting folks starting to think about some of the questions we have for you all. And I would encourage you to join next week to kind of think about Clean. What's the role? What do you want Clean to be going forward, especially with some of the ACE stuff coming out? And yeah, and I think part of that is conferences and how we coordinate and attend conferences. So I think this can continue is what I was going to say. I don't think we need to come to any conclusions today, but it sounds like there's interest from AGU, but not super interest around like what we've done in the past. So I think that's great. I think it'd be good to have further discussion next week about how we want to structure our attendance at conferences like AGU. So let's continue that next week. And then from there, we can keep making sure we get something in by whatever deadline for AGU.
And Katie, if I can leave us on a super positive note, I just got notification that I've been accepted as a consultant on for one of the new sessions at the UN level for the Action for Climate Empowerment work. So that was good because there's limited spaces, and like to try and make sure that we can not only attend the information sessions, but actually speak and like say things into the space. So.
Yay, congrats.
Yeah, awesome. I heard Don has something too. Can't hang up yet.
Yep. Just a very quick word that we had our 5th session of the Climate Change Education Collaborative yesterday that I think went well. And it was a working session where working groups started working on stuff, and the working group that I'm in is working on developing resources for practitioners, which of course has a very, very natural connection to Clean. And specifically we'll be working on a publication. I think I shouldn't say specifically yet because we're pretty general still. But if you're interested in jumping in on that, send me a note and I'll connect you. And thanks for a good discussion and a heart-wrenching one a little bit to start, which was important too. And it's 2:02, so we should probably head out.
Okay, be well and take care, everybody.
Thanks,
Nice to see everyone's
everyone.
faces. I've been so busy lately. I don't know how many calls I've missed, but it was just nice to see everybody's faces. So bye.
Nice to see you too, Ginger.
Thanks.
And join us next week. This will be a nice discussion around Clean. So please join for that next week.
You got a second, Katie?
Yeah. Let me stop the recording though.